Welcome to Trandy Wisdom, where every story is a doorway to truth and awakening. In today's reflection, Vesak storytelling. When compassion speaks, we invite you to pause, breathe, and journey with us through the quiet power of Buddhist teachings, where kindness flows not through words, but through presence. Let the stories of compassion from the life of the Buddha remind us that sometimes silence carries the loudest message of all. 1. An invitation to return. Vesak and the voice of compassion. On a quiet morning in May, when the moon is full and the air carries a stillness as old as time, temple bells begin to ring. Their sound does not pierce the silence. It deepens it. Each note is like a breath, calling us not to do more, but to do less, not to rush, but to return to ourselves, to the present moment, to the soft voice of compassion that still lives inside us, no matter how long we have forgotten it. Vesak is a sacred time in the Buddhist tradition, marking the birth, enlightenment, and passing of the Buddha. But more than a historical celebration, Vesak is a mirror held up to our daily lives. It asks us not how we will decorate the altar, but how we will live today. Will we walk gently on the earth? Will we speak words that heal? Will we recognize suffering, not only in others, but also within ourselves, and hold it with the tender hands of mindfulness? To understand Vesak is to understand that the Buddha is not a figure far away, frozen in stone or gold. The Buddha is a way of walking, a way of sitting, a way of breathing. The Buddha is the part of us that knows how to stop running, striving, proving. Vesak invites us to pause, not just in ceremony, but in our hearts. In that pause, we begin to hear a voice. It does not shout. It does not demand. It is the voice of compassion. When compassion speaks, it does not argue. It does not blame. It does not divide. It listens deeply, like the earth listens to the rain. It sees suffering clearly but without judgment. It embraces both the pain and the one who caused it. And it says, gently, I am here for you. These aren't just words. They are a way of being that the Buddha embodied, and that Vesak invites us to remember. There is a story often told of a young monk who asked the Buddha, "What is your teaching in one word?" The Buddha replied, "Awareness. Awareness is the soil from which compassion grows. Without awareness, we are lost in our own ideas, reacting to life instead of responding with love. With awareness, even a small act, pouring a cup of tea, closing a door softly, offering a smile, becomes a message of kindness. This is the essence of Vesak. To practice Vesak is to return to your breath. Feel it enter and leave your body like a quiet friend. Follow it, not with force, but with trust. Let each breath remind you that you are alive, that this moment is enough, that you do not need to become anything else in order to be worthy of love. When you breathe in, and know you are breathing in, you are already on the path of the Buddha. Compassion arises naturally when we are truly present, when we see the tired eyes of the person beside us, when we hear the unspoken sadness in a friend's voice, when we notice the curled brown leaf on the sidewalk, and remember that everything changes. We do not need to perform acts of greatness. We need only to wake up to the suffering, the beauty, the miracle of being here. The world today is noisy. It rewards speed and productivity. It celebrates opinions louder than it honors understanding. But Vesak asks us to do something revolutionary, to slow down, to sit quietly under the Bodhi tree of our own lives, and listen to our breath, to the heartbeat of the earth, to the child inside us who is still longing to be held. When we listen in this way, we begin to remember that compassion is not something we must create. It is something we must uncover. Many people think that compassion is soft or weak, but it is the most courageous force we have. It takes strength to love someone who has hurt you. It takes patience to understand someone who sees the world differently. It takes wisdom to see that all beings, even those who harm, are also suffering. Compassion does not mean accepting harm. It means choosing love as the foundation of every response. It means saying, I see your suffering. I do not agree with your actions, but I will not add more hate to this world. On Vesak, we honor the Buddha not only by lighting incense, but by lighting the lamp within. That lamp is compassion. It does not flicker when storms come. It does not depend on conditions. It is always there, waiting for us to stop, to turn inward, to recognize that the seed of the Buddha is in every heart. And like any seed, it only needs the rain of mindfulness and the sunlight of intention to grow. Imagine if, just for one day, we all chose to let compassion guide us. Imagine walking through your neighborhood and seeing each person as someone's child. Imagine listening to someone you disagree with and choosing not to win the argument, but to understand their pain. Imagine treating your own mistakes not with harshness, but with gentle eyes that say, I'm learning. This is not a dream. This is a practice, and Vesak is the perfect time to begin. You do not need to travel to a temple to celebrate Vesak. You can begin with your next breath. You can honor the Buddha by drinking your tea with full attention, by touching the hand of someone you love, and being fully present by walking slowly, knowing that each step is a miracle. The Buddha is in those moments. Compassion is speaking in them. And when you feel overwhelmed or unsure, return again. Return to the breath. Return to the silence. Return to the voice of compassion within you that has never stopped whispering, you are not alone. You are enough. You are loved. Vesak is not only a date on the calendar. It is a doorway, a sacred threshold that invites us to remember who we really are, not our jobs, our roles, or our accomplishments, but our true nature, vast, tender, awake. When compassion speaks, it says very little, but what it says can change everything. Are you listening? 2. Stories of compassion. When silence speaks louder than words, there are teachings that arrive like lightning, bold, dramatic, unforgettable, but the teachings that transform the heart most deeply are often like soft rain. They do not strike. They seep into the soil of our consciousness over time. They don't demand attention. They require presence. The Buddha's teachings, and especially the stories of his compassion, often unfolded in just this way, gently, quietly, and without fanfare. In many of these moments, there were no great proclamations, no miracles to astonish a crowd. Instead, there was a look, a pause, a small gesture, and in that gesture, the whole universe of compassion was revealed. These stories are like bells, inviting us to wake up. They are not just stories from long ago. They are mirrors reflecting what is possible in each moment of our own lives. If we slow down enough to notice, if we breathe deeply enough to care, one story begins with a field. The sun is high. The earth is cracked with heat. A farmer, tired and frustrated, strikes his ox with a stick. The ox is weak, hungry, and trembling with exhaustion. The man shouts. The stick rises again. But someone is watching, not with anger, not with judgment, but with profound understanding. It is the Buddha. He approaches, not quickly, not with confrontation, but with the calm presence of one who sees both suffering and its roots. The farmer sees him and freezes, unsure of what to expect. But there is no rebuke, no scolding. The Buddha gently places his hand on the ox's side. He kneels beside it. The ox turns its tired head, And for a moment, there is stillness. Then he looks at the farmer and says, "You are both suffering." He does not accuse the man. He does not label him cruel. He simply sees. He sees the pain in the animal and the pain in the man, the kind of pain that makes one lose patience, forget kindness, and act out of despair. This is not a story about power. It is a story about presence. The Buddha's presence interrupts the cycle of harm. It brings awareness where there was reactivity, breath where there was only heat and exhaustion. The farmer, softened by this presence, drops his stick. Tears come, not just for the ox, but for himself. The compassion here is not loud. It does not rise in volume. It rises in depth, and it begins with seeing. Truly seeing. There is another story. This time, the Buddha is walking with his disciples through a village where many outcasts live. These people are untouchable by social standards, considered unclean, rejected by the mainstream. The monks pass quickly, some averting their eyes, but the Buddha slows his steps. He notices a man sitting under a tree, thin and covered in dust. No one has spoken to him for days. His lips are cracked. His eyes have stopped searching for kindness. He expects nothing. The Buddha does not speak. He does not preach. Instead, he kneels and offers the man a bowl of clean water. He waits. He does not insist. The man hesitates, then drinks. Their eyes meet. In that moment, the entire teaching of the Dharma is alive. No sermon is needed. No formal words. Compassion has already spoken. Through action, through presence, through the refusal to turn away. Later, a disciple asks, "Why didn't you say something, Lord? Why didn't you tell him of the Four Noble Truths?" The Buddha replies, "He was too thirsty for words. First, we offer water. Then, we offer the path." This is the deep truth of compassion. It meets people where they are. It does not rush them to awakening. It nourishes them first, with what they need most: dignity, care, recognition. A single silent act can do what 1,000 words cannot. There is a third story, one that many find difficult to accept. It is a story about fear and forgiveness. A man named Angulimala was feared across the land. He had killed many, blinded by hatred, by delusion, by the fire of ignorance. People fled at the sound of his name. And yet, the Buddha, hearing of this man, chose to walk straight into his forest. Angulimala sees him and gives chase, but no matter how fast he runs, he cannot reach the Buddha, who walks calmly, steadily, one foot in front of the other. "Stop!" the killer cries. "Stop, monk!" The Buddha finally turns and says, "I have already stopped. It is you who have not." The words land like stones in the heart of Angulimala. Something breaks open. For the first time, he sees not just another man, but himself, his running, his rage, his confusion. And in the mirror of the Buddha's stillness, he sees the possibility of another way. He kneels. The Buddha offers not condemnation, but a path of practice, of transformation, of redemption. Later, when Angulimala becomes a monk himself, people still hate him. They do not believe he could have changed. But the Buddha reminds them, if hatred could end hatred, the world would be free already. Only love can end hatred. This is an ancient truth, but we forget it again and again. The compassion here is radical. It does not excuse the harm done. It does not erase the pain of the victims, but it does something even more powerful. It interrupts the cycle of vengeance. It says, you, too, can return to your true nature. These are not easy teachings. They challenge our desire for punishment, for moral superiority. But the Buddha shows us that true compassion is not sentimental. It is strong. It is fierce. It sees clearly and still chooses love. And finally, There is a story that has no moment of drama, no great event. It is the story of how the Buddha lived every day. He walked slowly. He ate in silence. He listened deeply. His every action was infused with mindfulness. He did not separate spiritual life from daily life. For him, each moment was an opportunity to embody the Dharma. He taught not only by what he said, but by how he lived. One day, a visitor came to ask the Buddha about his teachings, but before the question could be asked, the visitor noticed something strange. The monks were sweeping the courtyard with care. A novice offered tea with both hands. A bird landed nearby and was not disturbed. The Buddha smiled and said, "You have already received the teaching." This is the essence of silent compassion. It is not passive. It is active without aggression, engaged without ego. It is the smile that softens another's day, the step that does not crush a leaf, the gaze that says, "I see you, and I do not turn away." When we live in this way, we become the teaching. Our life becomes the story, not the story that people tell in books, but the kind of story that is felt in the heart and remembered by those who witness our presence. We may never meet a murderer in the forest. We may never kneel before a dying outcast, but every day we are offered the same invitations: to meet anger with patience, to offer water before words, to stop running and return to the stillness inside. This is what Vesak invites us to remember, that the Buddha's greatest teachings were not always found in his discourses, but in his silence, in his way of being, in the moments when compassion was not spoken, but lived. In a world where noise dominates, where words are many and attention is short, these stories remind us of a sacred power, the power of quiet presence, to listen with your full self, to walk as if the earth were sacred, to offer kindness that expects nothing. This is how compassion speaks, not through volume, but through depth. And this voice, this deep, wordless compassion, is not limited to ancient stories or to the person of the Buddha. It lives in you, in your breath, in your eyes, in your willingness to stop, to see, and to care. Today, as you move through the world, let yourself become a story of compassion, not one that needs to be told, but one that simply is. Perhaps someone is thirsty, not for water, but for recognition. Offer it with your presence. Perhaps someone is tired, not in body, but in spirit. Walk beside them in silence. Perhaps you are the one who needs compassion most of all. Then breathe deeply and offer it inward. Say, "I am here for you." When we live this way, Vesak is not a date on the calendar. It is the quiet unfolding of compassion, moment by moment, wherever we are. In these stories, silence was never emptiness. It was fullness. It was love in its most intimate form. And so, when compassion speaks, it often does so in silence, a silence so complete, it touches everything it meets. 3. Vesak today, becoming the voice of compassion. In today's world, Vesak is not only a sacred memory, it is an urgent invitation to remember what truly matters, not as an abstract ideal, but as a living, breathing truth in each moment. In the age of speed, distraction, and division, the gentle presence of compassion may seem like a whisper in a storm, and yet it is exactly this whisper that we are being asked to hear, not with our ears, but with our hearts. Compassion does not belong only to the past, or to temples adorned with golden statues. It belongs in the spaces we now occupy, the office filled with quiet stress, the street buzzing with hurried footsteps, the home touched by fatigue, longing, or silence. Vesak reminds us that the voice of the Buddha is not far away. It is in us. It is us. It is in how we speak, how we listen, how we breathe, how we respond when faced with fear, injustice, or sorrow. On this Vesak day, we are not only honoring the Buddha, who lived over 2,000 years ago, we are also being invited to awaken the Buddha within, not a perfect being, not a distant ideal, but a simple presence rooted in awareness and love. The Buddha is the one who knows how to stop and look deeply, the one who touches suffering with tenderness instead of fear, the one who walks with mindfulness and acts with care. To become the voice of compassion is not to take up a banner and shout. It is to slow down, to be present, to listen without preparing a reply, to breathe when others are losing their ground. It is to create a space where love can emerge, not as a performance, but as a way of being. Perhaps we believe that to make a difference, we must do something large, visible, or impressive. But the Dharma reminds us that small acts, when done with full awareness, carry the same weight as any grand gesture, offering someone our undivided attention, turning off our phone when a child is speaking, smiling to a stranger without needing anything in return. These are the modern expressions of Vesak. They are the modern expressions of the Buddha's voice, spoken through us. In the teachings of mindfulness, we learn that every moment is an opportunity to water the seeds of compassion. These seeds are already in us. We were born with them. Sometimes they lie dormant, hidden beneath layers of fear, habit, or disappointment, but they are there. And like any seed, they need light, warmth, and nourishment to grow. Vesak offers us this nourishment. We may ask, how can we practice compassion when the world feels so heavy? When news headlines echo with violence, when our communities are hurting, when even our own hearts feel burdened with sadness or fatigue? The answer is not to deny this pain, nor to escape it, but to embrace it with gentle courage. The practice begins with ourselves. Before we can be truly present for another, we must come home to ourselves. This is why the breath is such a powerful doorway. When we breathe in and are aware of our breath, we return. We remember that we are alive. We remember that this moment is enough. We create space inside, a space where understanding can arise. With this space, we begin to look around us differently. We see that the person who seems rude may be carrying an invisible sorrow. The colleague who snaps may be overwhelmed. The child who cries may simply be longing to be seen. Compassion is the art of looking beyond appearances, of seeing the human beneath the mask. It is not about fixing others. It is about being with them, truly being with them. This does not mean we accept all behavior or tolerate injustice. On the contrary, compassion gives us the clarity and strength to respond wisely, but it also prevents us from becoming reactive, from adding more suffering to an already burning world. It teaches us to ask not only, what is wrong, but also, what has hurt? Not only, what needs to be corrected, but also, what needs to be healed? Vesak today is also a call to care for our planet. The earth, too, is a living being. She offers herself without complaint, but she is not without pain. The Buddha taught interbeing, the insight that nothing exists independently. When we pollute a river, we pollute ourselves. When we cut down a forest, we cut into our future. When we return to mindfulness, we touch the earth with reverence. Each step becomes a prayer. Each choice becomes a message. I care. I understand that my life is intertwined with all life. To become the voice of compassion in today's world does not require a new identity. It requires a deep remembering how to walk without rushing, how to speak without harm, how to listen without resistance. It requires becoming intimate again with the miracle of life. A flower blooming by the sidewalk, a breeze brushing the skin, the stillness in the early morning before the world awakes. We do not need to wait for the perfect moment. Every moment is perfect when touched by awareness. Washing the dishes can be an act of peace. Standing in line can be an act of presence. Arguing can be transformed into understanding with a single breath. These are the places where Vesak is most alive, not on a calendar, but in a conscious life. For many of us, compassion may feel fragile. We worry it will be taken advantage of or misunderstood. But true compassion is never weakness. It is a strength born of clarity and softness joined together. Like water, it adapts, it flows, it nourishes, and yet it can wear down mountains. Vesak does not ask us to become saints. It asks us to become real, to become truly ourselves, not the self shaped by fear or ego, but the self rooted in presence. That self is not separate from the Buddha. That self is capable of great love, deep listening, and peaceful action. When we begin to live in this way, something changes, not only in us, but in the people around us. We become a refuge. Our presence becomes healing. Our life becomes a quiet teaching. We do not need to convince anyone. We simply live our truth. And that truth ripples out through smiles, through actions, through the spaces we create by just being there. On Vesak, we light candles in temples, but more importantly, we are asked to light the candle within, to keep it burning even when the wind rises, even when the night feels long. This is our practice. This is our gift to the world. Perhaps you are tired. Perhaps you feel small in the face of the world's suffering. If so, place your hand on your heart, breathe, and remember. One breath of compassion, one moment of true presence can be enough to change everything. There is a story unfolding in our time, a story of climate change, of war, of inequality, but also a story of awakening, a story of people remembering what it means to love, to care, to walk gently. Vesak today is your chapter in that story. You are not separate from the Buddha. You are not separate from the earth. You are not separate from the suffering, nor from the joy. Every breath you take is a thread that connects you to all of life. Let that breath be mindful. Let your words be kind. Let your actions be rooted in understanding. This is how we honor Vesak. This is how we become the voice of compassion, not by shouting, but by being, not by preaching, but by living, not in the name of Buddhism, but in the spirit of love. Today, let your life speak. Thank you for joining us on Trandy Wisdom, where stories are not just told, they are lived. As we close this journey through Vesak storytelling, when compassion speaks, may you carry with you the gentle strength of the Buddha's compassion. In a world that often moves too fast and speaks too loudly, remember, even a quiet breath, a kind glance, or a mindful step can be a powerful act of love. The voice of compassion is already within you. Vesak is simply a reminder to let it speak. Until next time, may your heart stay open and your presence be peace